Have you ever wondered what the difference is between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? Or perhaps what causes these conditions and who is most at risk? Hi there, I'm Dr Ananthan, and I'm a neuroscientist and researcher here at the University of Canberra. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some insights into what we know about dementia, how it develops, what increases or reduces risk, and how long it takes to get a diagnosis. First, let's start with the basics. What actually is dementia? Dementia is an acquired, chronic, and progressive neurodegenerative condition that affects the brain. It involves a decline in thinking skills such as memory and behavior, and later affects other brain functions as well, all while consciousness remains preserved. This decline is significant enough that it interferes with a person's ability to carry out everyday activities independently. These symptoms occur because of progressive degenerative changes in the brain that are unfortunately at this stage irreversible. Dementia is Australia's leading cause of death, with close to 500,000 people living with dementia, and that number is expected to increase substantially as the population ages. Dementia does not only impact the person with dementia, but also their families, caregivers, and the community. Dementia is not a single disease, it's a clinical syndrome, an umbrella term used to describe this collection of symptoms. There are multiple diseases that can lead to dementia. The most common is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is not separate from dementia. Rather, it is the most common form of dementia. In Alzheimer's disease, abnormal proteins build up in the brain. Two of the key proteins are amyloid beta, which forms plaques outside of neurons, and tau, which forms tangles inside neurons. Over time, neurodegeneration occurs, beginning with the loss of synapses and neuronal branches, and later affecting the cell body itself. This leads to cell death and causes certain brain regions, particularly those involved in memory, to shrink. These pathological changes begin several years and even decades before any noticeable symptoms appear. This long preclinical phase is why dementia is now understood as a lifelong condition in terms of risk development, even though symptoms often emerge in later life. One of the most important things to understand is that dementia does not suddenly appear. You don't wake up one day in your 60s or 70s with dementia that developed overnight. Instead, it reflects the gradual accumulation of brain changes and risk factors across decades. Some factors are outside of our control, like age and genetics, but a substantial proportion of dementia risk is linked to things we can influence across life. That means your habits in your 20s, 30s, and 40s can impact your risk of developing dementia later on, or protect you from it. But what are the habits you need to change? Well, to start with, cardiometabolic health is a major piece of the puzzle. Factors such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, and excess central body fat are all associated with poor brain health in later life. Much of my research looks at how these risk factors interact with aging and sex differences in shaping dementia risk. A useful rule of thumb is this: what's good for your heart is generally good for your brain. Looking after your blood pressure, cholesterol, physical activity, not smoking or drinking is not just about preventing heart disease, it's about protecting brain health. An emerging piece of the puzzle is taking care of your hearing and vision. Available evidence indicates that hearing loss in midlife is associated with increased dementia risk. People with mild hearing loss have around twice the risk, and those with severe hearing loss have substantially higher risk again than those with normal hearing. Recent research also suggests that vision impairment may play a role. However, there's even more that you can do to protect your brain, and that is education and lifelong learning. Cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to cope with damage, appears to be strengthened by learning and mental stimulation. Universities offer an incredibly enriching and supportive environment for learning. However, this is certainly not the only pathway. Reading something that challenges you, learning something new at your job, or even just watching this educational video can all add up to positive brain health habits. We know there's no overnight switch for developing dementia. So what should you be looking out for when it comes to symptoms? This is going to be different for everyone, but one of the most important things you can do is get an understanding of your baseline. What I mean by that is if someone who previously had strong memory, organizational skills, or navigational ability begins to show noticeable and persistent change or decline, that may warrant further investigation. But if you're like me and have always had spatial navigation issues, then it's probably not too concerning if I'm experiencing the same thing in my 60s. We also need to be aware of our circumstances. Increased levels of stress, anxiety, worry, sleep deprivation can all contribute to impaired memory function. Importantly, building a relationship with your GP or specialist before problems arise can make the diagnostic process smoother and less confronting. My most recent research has shown that it takes on average 3 to 5 years to get a dementia diagnosis from when symptoms are first noticed. While there is still no cure for dementia, earlier identification allows for better symptom management, support planning, lifestyle interventions, and in some cases, access to disease-modifying treatments that may slow progression. Thank you for taking the time to learn a bit more about dementia today. Your brain health matters. Start today.